Alright, so it looks like last class we left off. I think we just finished the legs and we had an overlap in the feet. And now we're going to again move up the rest of our character's body. So in this case, we're ready to start moving up the spine. Now with Alfred, his spine, he has FK controllers here. So there's one starting right above his root. This is going to be the lower spine. He'll have a second one here about in his midsection, and this will be the mid spine, and then we have one here for the upper spine. Now, the way I like to animate my spine controllers, especially when we're looking at FK, I like to shift select all three and position them at the same time. That way I get sort of more natural movements and curvature in the body. So I'm going to shift select all three of those controllers. And then as I'm animating this, we will eventually do it in all directions, so rotate X, Y, and Z, but we're going to focus on one axis at a time, and we're going to start with the rotate X. And the rotate X will allow us to, again, sort of shift our character's weight backwards and forwards as we're going through the cycle here. So there's a couple key areas where this is going to happen. We're going to start by rotating Alfred's back backwards on all three of our contacts. So on frame 0, 12, and 24, we're going to start rotating that back. So I'm going to go to frame 0. I'm going to come up here and click on rotate X, and with that selected, I'm going to middle mouse click and drag. And we're going to get sort of this nice arc here. Now, I am over exaggerating this. As you guys have noticed at this point, we set the poses, we might exaggerate them a bit, and then we'll go back and clean them up in the graph editor. So with that set there, I'm going to right click on rotate X, and let's go ahead and key select that. And again, because this is a cycle, frame 0 and 24 should be identical. I'm just going to go ahead and click on frame 24 and go ahead and set a key there for that position. And then on frame 12, it should be the same pose. So again, we're leaning back here to counterbalance our weight. Let's go ahead and key select that there. And then we want to have Alfred come forward a little bit here, so we're kind of catching ourselves, and there will be a little bit of overlap in the body there as we kind of step forward for that catch. And so I think somewhere right about frame 6, we'll actually do this on our passing frames. We'll have Alfred lean forward there in the rotate X. And let's go ahead and key select that. And then we'll look for the next pass, which should be frame 18. Now, you could set up a new pass pose if you wanted, or we could just steal the key on frame 6, which I'm going to do. So if you click on frame 6 and then middle mouse click and drag, the animation should stay where it's at. And then on frame 18, I'll right click and key select that. And so we should just steal those poses. And then if we hit play, whew, I forgot I just deleted my preferences. Let me right click on my timeline, and so this is what happens when you don't set your playback speed. Let's go playback speed, play every frame max real time. There we go. So one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is the head isn't following the angle of the spine. So right now the lock head is currently turned on, and I actually want to turn that off so I have a little more control over the head and the head bob that we're getting ready to build in. So I'm going to stop that. And before I even fix the spine, I'm going to come up here and grab that head controller at the top, and then over here in the attributes where it says lock head, let's just go ahead and turn that off. And with that off, again, his head should follow the rest of the upper body. Let's go back and shift select all three of those spine controllers, and I'm going to hop into the graph editor now, and we're going to, with everything selected, go to curves, pre-infinity cycle, and curves, post-infinity cycle, and then I just want to make sure under view that infinity is still turned on. That looks good. And so as we're correcting this, we're just checking a couple things here. So one, just making sure my curves are nice and smooth, or transitioning in a smooth fashion. So if we're looking at the beginning and ending here, we get this nice kind of wave. Now I wouldn't do this if your curves already look good, but if you happen to have linear keyframes like this at the beginning and end, it's going to create a faster movement, which wouldn't really be natural to the movement in this case. So we do want to put flat tangents on that so we do get that smooth motion. The next thing I want to do is lessen the exaggeration. Now I'm going to do this from, let's put this above the graph there. Oh, you turd. Sorry, just fighting with the interface here. There we go. Yeah, so we want to reduce the exaggeration. So I'm going to start here on the contact. I'll go to frame 0 just to see what that pose looks like. And then so all three of these keys here at the bottom should be that backwards rotation. And then it is really important over here on the left-hand side of your graph editor that you have each controller selected. So if I only have one of these highlighted, it's only going to update the one controller. So you do want to make sure you come in here and control click on all three controllers, and that way I'm editing the x-axis for all three at once. And then so we'll grab all three of these bottom keys, which should be my contacts, and let's shift those up to lessen the amount of exaggeration. And then let's hop to one of these keys here on the pass. Let's grab these and then push them down. And so when you guys, so again, you are going to do 2 walk cycles. When you do your exaggerated walk cycle, these are poses you could maybe push the exaggeration on. Again, to create a different feeling or mood. But with this one, we're not trying to get too crazy. Let's see. So he's bobbing along. That might be a little exaggerated still, but I think I'm going to leave it. So let me stop that. Let's hide our graph editor, and then let's move on to the rotate Y. And so the rotate Y is going to give us the twist in the spine. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to grab all three controllers here and bring up the rotation tool. And then, so when you're going through and editing these, I wouldn't recommend using the rotation tool here because sometimes, so you'll notice there I'm left clicking and dragging just on the Y axis, but it's actually adding value to both my X, Y, and Z. So let me undo that. There's a couple ways you can avoid that. If you just click once on that Y axis in the middle click and drag, it's still doing it. So actually, I'm just going to do it through the channel box. I'm going to click here on the rotate Y here so that it's highlighted. And then when I middle mouse click and drag, you'll notice it only adds value to just that axis. Ooh, too far. So we want to build in this rotation here in our spine, and what we should be doing is building in counter poses. So if we're looking at our contacts on frame 0, 12, and 24, what we're looking at is the forward leading leg, and we want to oppose that leg. So if on frame 0 our right leg is the forward leading leg, let's go ahead and take the spine and rotate it in the opposite direction. So I'm going to rotate his chest to the left. There on frame 0. Let's go ahead and key select that. And then again, we want frame 24 to be the same. So I'm going to middle mouse click and drag from frame 0 all the way down to 24. And then I'm going to key select that rotate Y again. And let's hop to frame 12. And then let's create the other opposing direction here. So I'm going to, on frame 12, it looks like the left leg is leading, so let's tilt in the right side like so, and let's key select that. And then if we hit play, we get a little bit of rotation there, or twist in the upper body. And again, we've set the keys. Let's go clean it up. So I'm going to come in here, and I only want to focus on the rotate Y values. We've already cleaned up the X. So I'm going to click once on the rotate Y here for the first controller, and then I'll hold control on my keyboard and select the other rotate Ys. And then with all three of those selected, let's go to our first pose here. Let's do pre-infinity cycle, post-infinity cycle. And so the curve looks good. Again, we get a nice smooth transition. Let's look at reducing these values. So I'm going to grab the two bottom keys here and we'll just push them up. And let's go to frame 12, grab it and push it down. And I'll see what that looks like. All right, so a little more subtle. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is a little bit of side to side in the z-axis. And let me start here at frame 0. Again, we'll shift select all three controllers. And the first thing I want to do is go to the contacts and key our default position for these in Z at 0 degrees, because at this point we shouldn't really be shifting our weight. Both feet are planted, and at least in this axis we're not trying to balance our weight. So let's go ahead and on frame 0 I'm going to key select the rotate Z at 0. We'll do the same thing on frame 12 and frame 24. And then we're going to go to the passes now, and we're going to build in an arc here in the body. So on frame 6, let's take the rotate Z, and again we want to counterbalance our weight here and lean in, because if we go in the opposite direction it's going to look like Alfred could probably just keep going and maybe tip over. So again we just want to lean in. We'll create this nice line of action here through our character's body, and then on frame 6 we'll key select that. And then let's go to frame 18 and have Alfred lean in the opposite direction. So again, this should lean in or favor the leg that's lifting up. And then we'll key select that there on frame 18. Alright, and now let's go clean that up. Stop that. Let's hop into the graph editor, and this time I'm going to click here to deselect my Y values, and then I'll just control select all the Z's. Let's go to curves, pre-infinity cycle, curves, post-infinity cycle. And then so this one does require a little bit of cleanup, because if you look at the beginning here at frame 0 or the end of frame 12, we get this kind of choppy, kind of like an S shape. And again, we would like this to smooth or transition smoothly. So I'm going to start by grabbing this first key here, and let's just pull its handle down so that it goes in line with the slope. And then on the other side on frame 24, I'll grab that key and we'll pull its handle up. And that should create this smooth transition throughout. This key here on frame 12, so we did set this. We could either delete it, or I might just pull that up just to smooth that out a bit. Should be fine. And then let's grab this key here and pull it up. And I'll grab the keys there on frame 18 and push them down. Oh, make sure I marquee drag to grab all those. Now I've got something funky going on here, so I deleted my preferences and it messed up the my default tangents. So I'm getting these weird shapes. I'm just going to grab all these, and let's start by making them weighted. Let's break the tangents and free the tangent length, and then let's flatten these. And then I'm going to have to recorrect this curve again. There we go. And let's see what that looks like. And it's a little more subtle. Alright, so let's stop that. And that's our spine. Let me go ahead and save real quick. And let's keep moving up the rest of the body here. So I'm going to grab the neck controller. And with the neck controller, I don't want to go too overkill with this. We are going to animate it very similar to how we just did the spine, but we're only going to do it in one axis, and that's going to be in the rotate X. And so, on the spine, on the contacts, so on frame 0, 12, and 24, we had the spine go backwards. So we'll do the same thing with the neck here. So I'm going to grab that neck controller, and on frame 0, let's take the rotate X, and let's knock that back. That's going to be way too exaggerated, but that's fine. Let's go ahead and key select that. Let's go to frame 12, and we'll key select that pose again, and then the same thing on 24. We'll just key select. Alright, and then so just like the spine, we want to have the head go forward. So on frame 6 for the pass, let's put that head going forward, and we'll key select this. And then on frame 18, we'll do the same thing. And again, I'm just going to steal that pose from frame 6. I'm going to go to frame 6, and then middle mouse click and drag to frame 18, and then we'll key select our rotate X there. And then we should have a really bobby Alfred. Alright, so let's stop that. Let's hop into the graph editor and clean it up. I'm going to grab that neck controller there and immediately just go to curves and do the pre-infinity, post-infinity. And then like I said, with this, I think the neck movement should be a little more subtle. We'll probably exaggerate it a little bit more in the actual head controller. So I'm going to grab all these keys here at the top. I'm going to make sure my current time's on frame 0 just so I can see what this looks like as I change it, and then I'm going to take all 3 of those keys and yank them down. And then let's go to a key there on frame 6 for one of our passes. Let's grab those 2 bottommost keys and pull them up. And this, it might really help if we zoom in on our curve. So again, if you forget how to do that, if you hold Alt and right click and drag, it'll zoom in both horizontal and vertical axis. If you hold Alt, Shift, and right click and drag, it'll go just horizontal. If you hold Alt and Shift and right click and drag up and down, it'll go vertical. So I think these keys could probably go up a little bit more. And the topmost keys could probably come down a bit. Let me stop that. I might take these down just a hair more. Alright, so let me stop that. That's our neck. Let's go and do the head now. And we'll start the head in a very similar fashion. So this head controller is right above the neck. I'm going to go to frame 0, and then in the rotate X, let's kick it way back, key select that, and then frame 12 should be the same. So we'll key select that, and then frame 24 should also be the same, so let's key select that. So that back pose on the head should be the same on all 3 contacts. And then we'll go forward to the pass position, and in rotate X we'll have that go way forward. We'll key select that there, and then I'm going to middle mouse click from frame 6 to 18 and key select my rotate X again, and let's hit play. Oh, that looks painful. Let me stop that. Let's go into the graph editor, and again we'll do pre-infinity, post-infinity with the head selected. And let's reduce the amount of exaggeration. So again, I'm going to go to frame 0. We'll grab all the bottommost keys here and then pull them up. Now this one you can be a little more exaggerated than you were with the neck if you want. But we probably also don't want to give Alfred whiplash. And let's see what that looks like. Might actually go back and add a little more exaggeration to this. And then something else we could do, so again, as we're animating, we want to think about overlap and how things sort of follow the body. It's all the movement in the body. Most of it is coming from the torso, and then everything attached to it is going to kind of follow along. So as the head and the spine is moving up and down and backwards and forwards, the neck would kind of overlap that a little bit. So we get it just sort of trailing behind by a few frames. So it's really important that you have, when we go to fix this or add the overlap, that you have pre-infinity, post-infinity turned on for your head controller so that it repeats this motion for infinity. Because what we can do is marquee drag and select all these keys, and to add the overlap, it's pretty simple. We just scoot them forward maybe 2 or 3 frames. So I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse click and drag to the right. 1, 2, 3. And that'll just slightly offset the motion on the head. Let me get rid of the graph editor here. So now we just get a little bit of subtle overlap there. Let's see. Let me stop that. Something else we'll want to check now. So we've pretty much done all of our character except for the arms. I do want to check the poses though from the front perspective, because I think the head might be doing something a little weird. So if we hit play and take a look at Alfred's head, it's swaying from side to side, and it would be nice if he kept facing forward the entire time. So this is going to be an instance where we are going to have to counter animate this so that, again, he is looking forward. So let me stop that. And all the poses where his head is turned are the contacts here. So what we'll do is we'll go to each contact and just straighten out his head. And so I'll grab that head controller, and in the Y axis, so I'm going to come up here and click on rotate Y, and then in my workspace here, or viewport, I'm going to middle mouse click and drag here so that Alfred is facing us. And then I will key select that. I'm going to middle mouse click and drag from 0 to 24 and key select rotate Y again. And then there on frame 12, again, he's looking away. So let's go back to the rotate Y, and then let's just have him, again, look straight again. And key select that. And that should keep Alfred looking forward the whole time. Let me stop that. I'm going to grab this eye controller here. So when he's going for his down, he starts to sort of look up a little bit. Let me take this and just push it down a little bit. There we go. Let me stop that. And I'm going to save again. And now we're ready to do the arms. Let me stop this. Now before we get into the actual arms themselves, I'd like to start with the clavicles. And again, with Alfred, the clavicles are going to be these little pins coming out of his shoulders. And with this, we want to continue building in these counter poses for the legs. And so I'm going to start with the contacts here. And just like what we did with the spine, we'll look at which leg is leading forward, and we want to counterpose that. So here on frame 0, the right leg is leading forward, so let's take the pin here on his left shoulder and pull it forward. And then on the right shoulder, we're going to push it backwards. Just a bit here. And Alfred's a little weird, so like I said, most rigs with the clavicles, this is done in rotation, but with Alfred here, they are translation. Now, once I get those posed, I'm going to go ahead and select both clavicle controllers and hit S to set a key. And then I'm going to middle mouse click and drag from frame 0 to 24 and hit S to set a key again. And then let's go to frame 12, so our next contact, and just reverse the positions here. So on frame 12, the left leg is leading forward, so that means the right clavicle should go forward for that counter pose, and then the left clavicle should go backwards. So let's push that back a little bit, and then let's shift select both of those. We'll hit S again, and we'll hit play. So now Alfred's arms will go backwards and forwards a little bit there as we're shifting weight. Alright, and then let's go into the graph editor and clean those up. Let's do one at a time. So I'm going to start with the left clavicle here, and let's go to the translate. Actually, let me select the whole controller first up here, and then let's just immediately turn on pre-infinity, post-infinity. And then let's go one attribute at a time just to make sure everything looks okay. So before I do, before I reduce the exaggeration, I am going to go through real quick and just make sure the curves are smooth. So X looks good, Y looks good, Z looks good. So the curves look okay. We can come in now and maybe reduce some of the exaggeration on these. It looks like most of the backwards and forwards movement should actually be coming from the translate Z. So I'm going to select the translate Z, and let's push these top two keys down, and then let's go to frame 12 and let's push this top key up, or this bottom key up, I guess. I actually don't think the X and Y are really affecting a whole lot, so I'm going to leave those alone. And let's move on to the other clavicle. So the right clavicle, we'll grab it, we'll do pre-infinity, post-infinity. And then again, let's just go through real quick and make sure our tangents or our curves are okay. And then let's reduce the exaggeration here in Z. And hit play. Alright, let's stop that. And then let's start looking at the arms. Now, to set up the arms, I'm going to go into my split panel again. And on the left panel, let's turn this into orthographic left. I'm going to hide those joints real quick, so I'm going to go to show, and let's turn those off just so they're not distracting. And I'm going to set the initial poses of my arms and elbows, and then we will only focus on the upper arm before we get into the keying the elbows themselves. So let's go ahead and just start by grabbing the upper arm controller here, and we're going to rotate it down so that Alfred's arms are down by his side. And this mostly happens in X. And what I'm doing is just trying to get it close to his body without really getting the hands too close, because if they're too close, when they start to go backwards and forward, they might penetrate his torso or waist. And then let's start posing these a little bit. So again, just thinking about the counter poses when we're moving our arms, we don't want to twin, so if the right leg is going forward, we wouldn't also want the right arm to go forward with it. Let's take the left arm and we're going to swing it forward. And let's do the same thing for the back, or the right arm. Let's take it and then let's swing it backwards. And then let's tilt it in a little bit here. So I'm going to do this in the X-axis. have it come kind of towards the center of Alfred a little bit there. And then let's take the left arm and let's, in the x-axis still, push that in. And then let's, just to get sort of an idea of what our elbows would look like on these poses, I'm going to start to add a little bend here. And then once we get those all posed and set up, we'll start setting keys. So at this point, like I said, we posed the elbows, but I'm not going to key the elbows just yet. We're going to focus only on these upper arms. So I'm going to grab this upper arm controller, both of them actually, and let's just hit S to set a key. And then let's middle mouse click and drag from frame 0 to 24, hit S to set a key. And then let's go to frame 12 and reverse these. So let's see, let's take the right arm and swing it forward. Now be very careful with this, because if I were to, let's say, do this and then set a key, Alfred's going to do a weird flip like that. So your rotation order does matter. Let me stop that. Let me undo that key. And I want to make sure when I do this that I very deliberately swing it in the direction that I want the arm to go. And then let's pull this in an X. And let's grab the other arm and do the same thing. Just going to push it back and then rotate it back in X. And then let's go ahead and just trying to get that tilted in a little bit more there in Y, so it looks like it's kind of arcing inwards a little bit instead of away from the body like this. I want to go inwards there in Y. And then once we get those set up, let's go ahead and shift select both arm controllers and hit S to set a key. Now I'm going to play this just to make sure I don't get gimbal lock or my arms don't flip, just to make sure my rotation order was okay. Yeah, okay. The next thing I want to do is look at the passes, and this might be better to look at from the front. So really I just want to make sure that Alfred isn't clipping here with the arms. And so this arm I could probably bring in a little bit closer. On frame 6, I'm going to go ahead and bring that arm in a little bit. And then the other arm, we can pull it out because it looks like it's about ready to clip through his body there. And then let's go ahead and shift select both of these and hit S to set a key. And then let's go to frame 18 and check that pose again for the pass. So we get sort of the opposite effect here. So it looks like this arm is too far in, so let's go ahead and pull that out in X. And then let's grab the other arm and let's push it in a little bit here again in X. And then let's shift select both of those controllers there on frame 18 and hit S to set a key. I'm going to go to the orthographic front view and I'm going to play this back just to make absolutely sure we don't have any sort of clipping. Alright, so that looks good. And then let's go ahead and start cleaning that up now. So let's hit stop. Let's go to the graph editor. I'm going to shift select both controllers. And then let's go to curves, pre-infinity cycle, and post-infinity cycle. And then I want to focus on one arm at a time. So let's deselect those. Let's grab just the left arm. And I'm going to go through an attribute at a time and just kind of see what we've got here. So the X is mostly going to control this arm moving either away or closer to the body. I'll push that one down on frame 6 a little bit. Let's go to frame 0 and let's grab that key. Let's actually grab that key and shift select the key there on 24. And let's push those down a little bit, just so that's a little less exaggerated there on that forward swing. Let's go to frame 12 and check that one in X. On that I could probably push down a little bit to lessen that exaggeration. And then let's just make sure these curves smoothly transition into one another. Let me grab these and let's make them weighted. Oh. That looks okay. And I'm going to check the rotate Y. I'm going to grab these and make them weighted as well. I'm just going to smooth out these sides here. And this might be okay. Let's go ahead and check frame 0 and see what this Y is doing for us. So I'm going to grab the first key there on 0 and the last key there on 24. And I'm going to middle mouse click and drag these up and down just to see what this is doing. So this is going to be the extreme pose for my contact, how far forward this arm's going to go. And I actually think that was pretty good where it was at, so I'm going to leave that. Let's go to frame 12 to check that extreme there for this arm. And I might push this one up a little bit. And we could probably, let me take frames or keys 6 and 18 and delete those. So we probably don't need those there. And then let's go to rotate Z. And then I'm going to go to frame 0. I'm going to grab the keys there on frame 0 and 24. And let's see what this does. So I'm going to middle mouse click and drag these down or up. So that's going to help me sort of push this a little bit more in that twisting towards the center of our body there as we swing the arms forward. And it was probably about good where it was at. Let's check the next extreme there. So it was on 12. And I might reduce that just a hair. And then let's go to frames 6. I'm going to try to delete the keys there on 6 and 18. And we'll see what that does. So we still have a pretty similar curve even without those keys there. So I think that'll be okay. And now I'm just checking here. I'm scrubbing through to make sure that arm still does not intersect the body. And the more I look at that, I think that might come in just a bit too much still there. So I'm going to grab the X. I'm going to reduce that exaggeration by pushing that down there on frame 12. Alright, that should be good for that arm. Let's go clean the other one up now. So I'm going to grab the right arm. Let's see where you did pre-infinity, post-infinity. I'm going to start here with the X. I'm going to grab the keys there on 0 and 24. And I think with these we'll want to push them down. Let's go to the next extreme, which is on 12. Let's take this one and push it. Looks like we want to push this one down to reduce the exaggeration there. And then let's check our poses on 6 and 18. So this is just give us control of how close that arm gets there on 6. Let me push that down a bit. And let's go to frame 18 and check it. Oh. I might pull that up just a hair. And let's see what that looks like when we play it back. Alright, stop that, and then let's go through and check the rest of these. So let's grab key 0 and 24. Again, this is going to be the extreme that makes our arm swing backwards or forwards. So I might reduce that just a little bit there. We'll go to frame 24 for, or 12 rather, for the next extreme. And let's see. That one was probably about good where it was at. And then these two keys here, so on the passes, 6 and 18, we probably don't need those. Let's just delete them. And then let's grab our rotate Z. And then again, let's check these extremes. So on 0 and 24, let's grab both of those. And that I could probably push in a little bit. And let's go to frame 12. Let's grab this extreme. And I'm going to pull it down. And let's grab these keys here again on the passes, so 6 and 18, and just delete them. And then let's look at our animation here from the front. And again, let's just make sure, I'm going to scrub through this. I'm just making sure that we don't get any clipping here. Alright, so that looks good. Let me stop that. And now we're going to start building in overlap in the elbows. So let's start with the first elbow on the left. So I'm going to grab that elbow there. And what we want to do is go through our animation and think about how this appendage would be trailing behind with the movement. So let's take a look here. So I'm setting the key on frame 0, but I need to see the animation that leads into that. So I'm actually going to preview or scrub through the end of my animation to see what leads up into that going back into the beginning of the cycle. And then let's scrub through this again. And so we want this to be slightly bent forward here on this pose. So on frames 0 and 24, we just make sure there's some arm bend there. And I'm just going to hit, we've already got arm bend, so I'm going to go ahead and just hit S to set a key there. And then let's go to frame 24 and hit S again to set a key. And then let's scrub through here. Let's go to frame 12. And then let's straighten that arm out a bit. And hit S to set a key. And then, let's see here. So if we're looking at the upper arm movement, so again we want the elbow to look like it's trailing behind. If that arm is swinging backwards, we want to add in a little bit of drag in the elbow. So to get that drag, we're actually going to continue the forward movement of that elbow. So I'm going to go forward to frame 4, and then let's just rotate that elbow forward some more. And let's hit S to set a key. Let's go forward again after that contact. Now this is where we could break the arm. So if we're looking at the animation here from 12 to 24, again just thinking about the movement of the upper arm's swinging forward. And so again, if we want to add drag on the elbow, we could have it go backwards. And again, you know, in animation sometimes we break things. The more you exaggerate the break here on 18, the more of a rubber arm effect you're going to get. So it really depends on the type of exaggeration that you want out of your animation. So I'll overkill it here a little bit on frame 18, and we'll just hit S to set a key. Let's see. Let's hit play. So that's probably too much, but a little bit of overlap there in that arm. We'll go back and reduce that in a bit. Let's grab the other elbow now, and let's do the same thing here. So for the right arm, again, we should be slightly bent here. on the contact. And let's go ahead and hit S to set a key. Let's go to frame 24 and do the same thing. And then on frame 12, for the other contact, we could probably pull this up a little bit more, just to exaggerate that up, or that rotation forward. And we'll hit S to set a key. And then let's start adding in that overlap. So this is where we have the arm swinging forward on frame 6. And again, if we want to add drag on the elbow, we could break this to make a noodly arm. It really depends on how much exaggeration you want out of this. So there on frame 6, let's maybe break it a little bit and hit S. And then let's see, on frame 16, so about 4 or 5 frames forward here. Again, this is where leading out of that contact on frame 12, the upper arm is swinging backwards. And again, if we want to add some overlap to make it look like that elbow is trailing behind, we'll have the elbow continue to swing forward, like so. And then we'll hit S to set a key. And let's play that back. So there's a little bit of drag there. And like I said, that's probably a little overkill on the on the exaggeration, but we'll go in and fix that. I'm going to shift select both of these controllers, and let's in the graph editor here just immediately go and do pre-infinity, post-infinity on this. Let me just tear this menu out here. Cycle. Okay. And then let's go through one arm at a time. So I'll select the left arm. Oh, not the arm, elbow. And then with this one, it's nice because there's only really one attribute we have to worry about, and that's the rotate Z. If we look at the beginning and end of this curve, so again, we get that kind of weird, choppy curve with the S shape. Again, we want to clean that up. I'm going to start by grabbing the first key here on the left. Make sure to grab all these real quick and make them weighted. And before I should have done this a long time ago, I'm going to go back into my settings here and turn weighted on and clamped. So hopefully you guys have already done that. There we go. And then let's grab this last key here and push it down. And then let's check that exaggeration now. So I think what we have on frame 0 and 24 should be good. Frame 4, this is going to be our drag there. So we could maybe push that up a little bit. And really frame 18 is the one where we want to come in and reduce the exaggeration. So I'm going to come in and pull frame 18 up. Like so. And then let's check the other elbow. So I'm going to grab the right one. Let's go to rotate Z. Again, let's just immediately clean up this curve. So I'm going to grab all my keys real quick and make them weighted. And then let's grab this first key and push its handle down. Let's grab this last key and push its handle up. That should give us a nice smooth curve. Let's see if that pose looks okay there on our contacts. So that looks alright. And it looks like frame 6, this is our break. So again, this might be too exaggerated. Let's take that key and push it up ever so slightly. I still want a little break there. Now if you wanted this to be a little more realistic, you would probably maybe just straighten the arm instead of completely breaking it, but I'm going to add just a little break there. Frame 12, let me grab that. I'm just going to smooth that curve out a little bit by pulling that handle up. And then frame 8 or 16. Let's see. That's the drag or the overlap in the elbow there as the arm swings backwards. This one I might exaggerate a bit more. And then let's collapse that and focus on this. And let's see what that looks like. So it's a little less exaggerated. So it's up to you. You know, it depends on the type of performance you want. I wouldn't go too overkill on the vanilla or the plain WalkCycle, because again, you will have an exaggerated one where you could really push the exaggeration. Let's see. We can add some overlap in the wrists now, so I'm going to stop this and let's start building that in. And again, we'll go one wrist at a time. I'm going to grab the left wrist. And with this, we want it to go in the opposite direction that the arm and elbow are going in. So it looks like leading into that pose for the contact on frame 0/24. That arm and elbow are swinging forward. So to have some overlap there in the wrist, let's actually move it backwards. So I'm going to go back to frame 0 and let's see what axis. I'm going to try to animate this a little more efficiently here. Excuse me, we're only going to do this in Z. And so let's break that back in Z and key select that there. Let's go to frame 24 and do the same thing. We'll key select the rotate Z. Let's see. On frame 12, we have another contact. So we're just looking at the other extreme here. And so if that arm and elbow are swinging backwards now, if we wanted that drag in the wrist, we want it to go in the opposite direction. So in rotate Z, let's swing it forward. And I am exaggerating this a bit. And then let's start adding in some more overlap. So if we keep going forward here, somewhere about frame 6, again, as that elbow is going backwards, let's have the wrist continue to swing forwards. And key select that. On frame 12, that might be a little broken. We'll still have a bit of a curve here. So if we were to sort of follow the line of action through the shoulder, through the wrist and the hand, I want more of a natural curve or arc there, but I still want this to be a little broken there. Let's go ahead and key select that pose. And then let's go to frame 18. And so again, if we're thinking about the movement of the upper arm, the arm and elbow are swinging forward. And so on frame 18, let's have some more drag on the wrist. And let's just tilt it backwards. And we'll key select that. Alright, so we've got some overlap in there. It looks a little awkward, but we'll clean that up in a bit in the graph editor. Let's go ahead and let's do the right wrist now. So again, if we're looking at the movement of the arm here, as it's going into that pose there, the arm and elbow are swinging backwards. So on our contacts on frame 0 and 24, let's have the wrist swing forwards in Z. And let's key select that. Let's go to frame 24 and set a key again. And then on frame 12, if that arm and elbow are going forwards there on that contact on 12, this wrist should be going backwards in Z. So we'll break that and key select it. And then let's see, frame 6. So again, just thinking about how that arm is moving forwards. Again, we want to add some overlap there, so let's have the wrist break backwards to drag behind. And then let's go to frame 18. Let's see. So at about frame 18, that arm is going backwards. So let's have the wrist continue to go forwards. And we'll key select that. Let's take a look. Alright. So we've got some nice swinging, overlapping arms. Let's stop that. I'm going to grab both of those controllers now and we'll clean them up. I'm going to start just by adding the pre-infinity, post-infinity on both of these. So with both of those controllers selected under curves, go pre-infinity cycle, post-infinity cycle. And let's clean these up one at a time. So let's grab that rotate Z there. And so I can immediately see a problem here at the beginning and end, and that's that these keys are linear. I would like a little more hold there so we don't get this kind of snappy movement in the wrist. So I'm going to grab the keys there on 0 and 24 and let's flatten them. So I'm going to grab that flattened tangent. And then this is where we could come in and maybe reduce the amount of exaggeration. I'm okay with the poses there on that right wrist. On my contacts, 6 is where we broke it. So I can maybe take this key and, oh, I'm looking at the wrong arm. So make sure you're looking at the right controller there. Let me actually deselect both of these and we'll just select one at a time so I get less confused. Let's actually look. I might actually take the keys on frame 0 and 24, and I am going to reduce the exaggeration there a little bit. Let's grab that key's handle and pull it up now on 0. Let's grab the key on 24, push its handle down. Again, so we have this smooth transition. And then let's go to frame 6, and I might slightly reduce the exaggeration here. Let's go to frame 12. I'll push that up just slightly. Frame 18 is that break there, so we're dragging behind. Let's grab that key and I'm going to push it up a bit just to reduce the exaggeration. Alright, and let's do the same thing with the other wrist. Let's grab the right wrist. Let's grab its rotate Z, and I'm just going to grab the first key and the last key and we'll flatten those. And so I think the contacts look okay, so frame 0 and 24 look good. Frame 6, so again this is the drag on this. We could maybe reduce this a bit. I still kind of like that arc the arm's making, so I'm not going to get rid of it entirely. And I'm going to check frame 12. This one I might pull up just a hair. And then again we get that dragging pose there on 8. Might take this one down just a hair. And let's hit play. Alright. And the last thing we have are the fingers. So let's see, let's start with the left fingers. Now, I'm not going to require a whole lot of complex animation out of this because you could maybe animate the fingers rotating or curling in. I probably could have even rotated the wrist inwards as we're swinging the weight forward and then having overlap on those wrist movements, but again, I'm not going to require that you do that. But with the fingers, we're only going to select the base knuckle. So I'm going to shift select all 4 base knuckles there. I'm not going to worry about any of the other knuckles. And then on frame 0 and 24, so again, just thinking about the contacts and that wrist movement now. So if we want this to drag behind the wrist, we're going to want to rotate these in Z backwards. Actually, I think it's Z. Let me see. Nope, not Z. X. Wait, am I crazy? No, I was right. Okay, it's Z. JK. So let's swing these in a bit here towards Alfred, and let's go ahead and key select that rotate Z. Then I'm going to mouse click and drag to 24 and key select that again. Let's go to frame 12 now and see what's happening there. So again, if that wrist is going back, let's have these swing forward in Z. like so. Let's key select that. Let's see. So before, a lot of the animation we were doing on the wrist and elbow happened on frames 6 and 16. I'm actually going to go just a frame after that, just so this lags just slightly behind the rest of the arm movement. And so on frame 7, let's have those fingers swing forward even more. And we'll key select that. And on frame 17, it looks like that wrist and hand are going forward, so let's have these go backwards. And let's key select that. So now we get these nice kind of floppy fingers. I'm going to go ahead and jump in the graph editor and clean these up before I go to the other hand. So let's go into the graph editor, and with all of these still selected, actually I think that looks okay, other than this first tangent. We could flatten that for a little more hold. Let's flatten this one as well. And then if you wanted, you could reduce the exaggeration on any one of these keys by moving it accordingly, but I think that looks okay. Let me stop that. Let's go to the other hand and do the same thing. So I'm going to grab all 4 base knuckles. And let's go to frame 0. And actually, let me scrub through to the end of 24 just to see what's happening in that hand and wrist. So it looks like that arm and all that, it's swinging backwards. So let's have the fingers come forwards in Z, like so. Let's go ahead and key select that. I'm going to hop to frame 24 and do the same thing. Key select that, and then let's go to frame 12. So again, if the arm and wrist are coming forwards on frame 12, let's have this go backwards in Z. And then on frame 7, it looks like that wrist is going forwards. So let's have these go slightly backwards. And then on frame 17, let's have these fingers go forwards in Z. We'll key select that. And let's stop that. And let's just hop into the graph editor real quick and clean up the graph. And really it looks like all I need to do is on the keys on 24 and frame 0, we just need to flatten them. Again, to have some ease in and ease out. Or slow in and slow out, I'm speaking After Effects terms. And that's it. So we've got this all set up. Let me stop this. And so if you wanted to play this back in real time, so right now we have it set up to 24 frames, and what it's doing here as it plays back, it's actually repeating 2 frames in a row, so we get a little bit of stutter because frame 0 and 24 are the same. So if you wanted to see this without that sort of stutter, let's take this down to 23 frames now instead of 24, so it skips that last frame, and it should get rid of that little pop there at the end, and we get more of a natural movement. I'm going to stop the video here, and what I'm going to do is do a separate video showing us how to set up a render so we can render these and then composite them in After Effects. Let me stop this. Let me save my scene.